Every video and episode of the It's Cavalier podcast is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos, podcasts, member shoutouts, and more. And as always, thank you for watching. Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Miami Heat in Game 2, a chance to double down and go up 2-0 in this series. And boy, oh boy, we got a competitive one tonight, didn't we? After being absolutely run down in Game 1, we knew Erik Spoelstra and company would adjust, and that's exactly what they did, ladies and gentlemen, right out of the gate. In fact, as Spo would tweak the starting unit a bit and start Donovan Mitchell in place of Alec Burks tonight. And I think that within itself speaks volumes to how well Davion has played since he came over to Miami. He's been really, really good for him, and he put on a pretty good performance tonight. But I think that was in an effort to lean into the defensive side of things. Now, whether or not that worked, that is an entirely different story, and we're going to discuss that. But before we dig into the specifics, do your boy a favor and smash that like button, subscribe to keep the NBA content coming, and hit that notification bell so you always know when I'm going live. Alrighty, as I said, this was a competitive one from start and surprisingly to finish, but it wasn't always that way. That's the thing. There were long stretches in which the Cavs absolutely dominated. Cleveland executed a number of offensive flurries that turned into mini Cavalanches, and at the heart of those, oftentimes, were names that you all become familiar with, guys that we love, right? Sam Merrill in particular was just fucking brilliant in the first half. Not only was the ball denial and screen navigation and man-to-man defense all looking at a pretty high level, dare I say elite, but the three-point stroke was fully unleashed tonight. Sammy Buckets, the Mormon Missile, Money Merrill, whatever you want to call him, he is an absolute sharpshooter out there and was an absolute demon tonight on both ends of the floor, especially in that first half. He was a huge reason why they set a record tonight, believe it or not, in that second quarter. And what is that record, you may ask, if you did not watch this game live? Well, they drilled a playoff record 11 triples in the second quarter. That's right. That is the most in any quarter in any playoff game in franchise history. And Merrill wasn't the only person contributing to that, though. That Sam obviously canned two of them in that second quarter, but DeAndre Hunter, who we're going to talk about in just a little bit, drilled two. Max Strus drilled three in the second quarter. Isaac got one. That was good to see. Donovan Mitchell drilled two on his way to 7 triples, if you can believe that. Evan even knocked down one. But in total, they knocked down 11 on their way to a 43-point second quarter, which helped them take a 68-51 lead into the half. It also tied the second most points in a quarter in franchise playoff history as well. This team just does not stop setting records. They really don't. And overall, they shot 57.1% from the field in the first half, including an unreal 60.9% from three-point range, as 3 different Cavs would score in double figures. Meanwhile, Miami struggled to keep up in the first half. Tyler Herro, after getting locked up in Game 1, despite what the stat sheet, I don't give a fuck what the stat sheet said in Game 1. This motherfucker got locked up in Game 1, but he had a much, much, much better game tonight. Still, he had to work for damn near everything he got tonight, as Merrill, Okoro, Strus, Jerome, and a few others were attached to him at the hip and wouldn't often allow him a lot of space to operate with. And he ended the first half with 17 of Miami's 51 first half points on a very respectable 7 of 11 from the field, including 3 of 6 from deep. Bam was mostly held in check too, putting up a measly 5 points in the half, but he did pull down 8 rebounds and dished out 4 assists. Really, honestly, when you just look at the defensive intensity on him, It was apparent, as we often saw Evan Mobley and DeAndre Hunter and Jared Allen at times deployed as stoppers against him. They just gave him little space to work with in the mid range, in the post, because we know he likes to post up. And even when he did get a switch onto a favorable matchup, it didn't really work out as much in the first half, as the help defense was always there. But when you look at some of the other, the ancillary options, Davion Mitchell picked up 2 early fouls, but still managed to impact this one, especially in that fourth quarter where he scored, 9 or 10 points, if I'm not mistaken. He was driving the basketball with an intent to kick it out onto the perimeter, which we saw him do on more than a few occasions. And the one that really, really sticks out to me was his drive and kick to Khalil Ware early in the third for a three-pointer. And I'll say this, he ain't Darius Garland. He's not Donovan Mitchell. Hell, he ain't even Ty Jerome, but he is pretty damn solid for Miami. He's been really good for them since being acquired. So I got to give him his fair share, his respect. The driving game in general, when you really think about it, was working for Miami, as a number of players drilled that corner triple and some from above the break, including Haywood Highsmith, who knocked down 3 first-half triples on his way to a pretty solid night. Miami, they really gave it everything they had in this one, and they would mount a couple of different runs, especially in that fourth quarter, and they would cut the lead all the way down to, I believe, 1 point to get back into this one. And credit to Miami for hanging in there for as long as they did. I have nothing but respect for that organization, nothing but respect for Eric Spoelstra and always fielding a competitive team. The Cavs, man, despite a fourth quarter that was pretty damn ugly, at one point they were being outscored 19-8. They still had more than enough to put this one away. And a big reason for that was obviously Donovan Mitchell. So I just want to take this point in time to kind of point out what we saw from Donovan Mitchell tonight in regards to the stat sheet for him. Let me see if I have that. Donovan Mitchell. I don't even think that's the most up-to-date one. I missed that last field goal attempt, but he would finish with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, was actually 10 of 21 from the field, was 7 of 10 from three-point range. That is 70%. And a lot of that, I believe they said he scored 17 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter. 3 of 4 from the charity stripe in about 35, 36 minutes of action. To the right-hand side, if you're watching over on YouTube, you can see the shot chart where you see a lot of X's and O's, more green than red, though, which we always love to see here. And Mitchell, man, he just, in a game that felt like it was slipping right through the Cavs' hands, right through their fingers, Donovan Mitchell was right there to kind of close the proverbial door, as he just hit timely shot after timely shot, and many of them were triples. A lot of them contested or really, really high degree of difficulty shots. This man was built for these moments, man. I swear to you, this is the reason why you have a player like Donovan Mitchell on your roster. This is why you go out and acquire a player like Donovan Mitchell, a top 10 player, if not top 8. And it just goes to show you that this man is capable of closing the door. And he's been one of the best closers all season, along with Darius Garland. There's a lot of different players in this league, specifically this season, that are getting admiration for the Clutch Player of the Year award, and Donovan Mitchell was in that list. Darius Garland was among those as well, but I don't think they got enough love. And I think a lot of it is because they dominated from start to finish, right? They really never surrendered the number 1 seed. And tonight they showed the heart of a champion in responding to a very, very impressive Miami Heat run. Credit where credit is due in regards to Miami, but they can't hang, right? They can't hang for the entirety of a game. They gave it their best shot, and I respect the hell out of them for that. But when you have a player like Donovan Mitchell on your roster, sometimes it's just unfair if you're the opponent. And that's exactly what happened to the Miami Heat in that fourth quarter, as Donovan Mitchell just went completely off. And you needed that, because frankly, the Cavaliers were out of sorts in that fourth quarter. And I know a lot of people are going to say it was due to the heavy use of isolation sets. And admittedly, that was what we saw, right? We saw a lot of ISO ball in that fourth quarter. A lot of it just the ball was not moving the way that we had become accustomed to, even when in ways that we just saw in game one. The Cavaliers were just not moving the ball. The energy was not there. And there was a lot more one-on-one isolation heavy basketball being played. And Donovan Mitchell was obviously at the forefront of that, but he was making his shots and he put it away. He closed the door. So I can't be too upset at that, but I hope that in game 3 and beyond in this playoff, they remember that they are at their best when they're moving that ball. They're not playing at Miami's pace. And we know that the playoffs, things slow down, but Miami plays right into that. They finished with the 27th quickest pace in basketball this season. They love to grind it out. And while Cleveland is no stranger to that, because they played for years in that fashion under JB Bickerstaff, they are clearly at their best when they're on the move, when they're getting that ball moving from side to side, and they're getting more looks for everybody and not playing so much in isolation. And so they just got to get back to the roots. I think they will, but a win is a win. That's all I got to say in that regard, in regards to that fourth quarter. But one of the things that I kind of want to discuss was the officiating, because I know that that's going to be a topic of interest in regards to this game. And I got to say, man, I have never been a fan of Tony Brothers, especially as a head official out there. You know what it means when Tony Brothers is announced as in the officiating crew for your game, especially if it's a playoff game. You know exactly what that means. It means that not all calls are going to be officiated the same. Both teams are not going to be on a level playing field in terms of physicality, which has honestly been the case all season long, it feels like, as Cleveland has not been allowed to be nearly as physical as other teams tend to get with Cleveland. And you saw that, and two particular calls kind of stand out to me and come to mind. There was the ticky-tack foul call on Evan Mobley, if I'm not mistaken, on Bam Adebayo on a shot from the mid-range where he barely touched him. It was really, and when I say ticky-tack, I mean that shit. It was really, really ticky-tack. It did not need to be called. Very little contact. But if it was the other way around, you just get the feeling that Tony would have called it, or the crew would have called it in that fashion. And then the other, and there was a lot of them, but the other one that sticks out to me is the Jared Allen screen that was set on Davion Mitchell around the 6-minute mark in that third quarter. It just tells you everything you need to know about this game. I despised this crew from start to finish, and there was at least a couple of calls that went the Cavs' way, but not nearly enough, in my opinion. But another one was a missed walk in the fourth by Haywood Highsmith. That one definitely should have been called, and it had Kenny Atkinson pretty heated along with the Cavalier bench. But still, through all that, Cleveland overcame as Miami put up a valiant effort, as we saw Tyler Herro really try and put the team on his back, where guys like Bam Adebayo and Andrew Wiggins were kind of struggling. So credit to Tyler for doing as much as he did. Credit to Davion Mitchell for trying to keep his team in this one, but it was for naught. I mean, it truly was. Davion Mitchell would finish with 18 points and 6 assists on 7 of 9 from the field. A good chunk of his scoring coming in that fourth quarter, where he was able to get to the rim off of some very, very physical drives, a couple of pull-up jumpers, a couple of nice three-point shots being made. Still, he was a -6 on the night. Tyler Herro would have finished with 33 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on a somewhat efficient night, right? I guess pretty efficient, all things considered. 14 of 24, pretty high volume, but still efficient. That's 58.3% from the field, including 4 of 11 from three-point range. Now, the stat sheet won't tell you that he had to work for everything that he got out there tonight. None of it came easy. None of it came easy. I think that if you watch this game from start to finish, you will see how much this man had to work, whether it would be going around screens, or if he had Sam Merrill or Struz or Okoro chasing them around. The screaming navigation was very, very high level in this one, as they just did not give him a lot of space to work with. But perhaps even more impressively, he knocked down the shots that he took for the most part. So you do have to credit Tyler Herro for that much after a pretty rough game one. But it just was for naught for them, especially when you got Bam Adebayo only putting up 11 points, going 3 of 9 from the field, including 1 of 5 from 3-point distance. And this man nearly had a triple-double, 11 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists. Say what you want about Bam in regards to the shot making, because it's not always efficient. It's not always high volume for him, but he is multifaceted, one of the better passing bigs in the game, and we know what he is capable of from a defensive standpoint. He's one of the guys that Evan Mobley is routinely compared to in terms of skill set, because they have very, very similar games. And I think that helps when you're talking about chemistry with the likes of Max Strus and the two-man game, the two-man actions that you often see with Mobley or Allen in terms of the DHO or the pick and roll, and getting those guys into their spots around the rim, whether that be skip passes, pocket passes, or lobs towards the rim from Strus. But yeah, Miami did not have enough to keep up with Cleveland in this one from start to finish, but they put up a valiant effort. And I hope Cleveland learned a valuable lesson in the fourth, and that is you never take your foot off the pedal. You never take your foot off the pedal. And I know a lot of that can be attributed to just, for one, too much one-on-one isolation heavy basketball, not enough ball movement in general. But at the end of the day, Cleveland, when they need to lock in, they have, one, the talent to lock in, and two, they're beginning to learn as a unit how to close out these big games. And it's not like they haven't done this type of thing all season long, where they have lulls in the second half and then, fight back furiously or close the game out, slam the door, that sort of thing. But you hope to see that as much in a postseason environment. And I think games like this, believe it or not, can be a teachable moment. Is at one point they led by as many as 19 points, if I'm not mistaken, in this one. And they almost left this one with an L. And at a certain point in the game, you didn't really think that was the way that the game was going, because again, they led by as many as 19. There hadn't been a lot of lead changes, but just one. Honestly, the biggest lead was 19. The lead only changed once. The longest run was 10. But at the same time, you often felt like Miami was only a shot or two from really breaking this one open and getting back into it. And that's exactly what they did, especially in that fourth quarter. So you really, really needed them to lock in. And Donovan Mitchell, at the very least, was able to do that. And I'm glad that he was able to do so. When you look at some of the other things that occurred tonight, one of the bigger things to me was the play of DeAndre Hunter, who was held scoreless on an 0 of 4 from the field in game one. Things kind of turned around for him tonight, as you want to look at Hunter's series so far. In game one, he was 0 of 4, all 4 of his shots coming within the painted area, a couple of mid-range jumpers that did not go down. In game two, just to pose that, you have a good shot diet here, good shot chart. He kind of spread it around a little bit as you got some action from the outside and from the inside, as he drilled those 2 triples in that second quarter. That was part of the Cavaliers' record-breaking 11 triples in that second. And you got some drives towards the rim, and you got some pull-ups, right? Exactly what you acquired DeAndre Hunter to go out there and do. And I think that after watching him stink it up on both ends of the floor in game one, this was a welcome return to form. And I don't think anybody was seriously worried about the play in game one from him. You knew he would bounce back, but on a night where, you did not quite get the same level of production from your other high minute reserve and Ty Jerome, who went just 2 of 8 from the field for 6 points. You needed somebody to pick up that scoring load off the bench, and DeAndre Hunter was that guy tonight, as he would put up 12 points on 4 of 10 from the field. You needed it, frankly, and I'm glad that he was able to round back into form, and hopefully that continues as we head into game 3. Elsewhere, what else did you get? You got the production from some of the deeper reserves, and I don't necessarily think that it was anything to write home about. As again, Sam did not have a high level of offensive impact in the stat sheet, at least, as after those 2 triples, it was basically dead silent from him. He would contribute once more on the defensive end, as I mentioned, but you got the 1 triple from Isaac Okoro tonight. You got 0 points from Dean Wade, who played just around 5 minutes and 37 seconds of action. It was, again, not the best overall performance from some of the reserves, but at the end of the day, I think they did what they needed to do to bring this one home. And it all circles back to the high level play of the starters, right? You got a lot from Evan Mobley tonight, who was phenomenal. I believe he would finish 7 of 10 from the floor. You got 2 dribbles from him. I was not quite expecting that. Actually, I think you got 3. I think you got 3 triples from Evan Mobley tonight, and I don't think anybody was necessarily expecting that. So you went 3 of 6 from 3-point range, and they give him that shot. And if you give it to him, he's going to take it. In years past, that was not happening. I need people to understand that. And the best part about it is it's not just coming from above the break, which is typically a big's best shot, right? It's their best friend, that above the break triple. Evan Mobley is taking these things from everywhere from beyond the arc, whether it's the left-hand corner, the right-hand corner, above the break, from the slot area. He is taking them everywhere. And I think that coming into next season, the scouting report is just going to be like, you kind of throw your hands up because you don't really know how to defend Mobley. Do you give him that space from the perimeter? Do you sag off of him? Do you play do you apply the pressure on him? Do you play him closely? I think it tends to lean towards the latter than the former guys. And I think that's a huge development, especially in regards to the spacing of the offense. If you have Evan Mobley out there on the perimeter, which was the dream all along in terms of the front court pairing between Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, if you had at least one of them viably spacing the floor, that opens the driving lanes for Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Ty Jerome, or whoever else is out there. And it also gives you a real threat in the front court to knock down the triple, where you did not have that in seasons prior. We're talking maybe back to Kevin Love having his 6th man of the year type year. It just wasn't there. I mean, I guess if you want to, you can call George Niang that, but George Niang's fit here was honestly still remains one of my favorite Cavaliers, despite all the antics, despite the defensive woes, and he was good for the fans. But he by no means was the option you wanted to count on come the playoff time. And with Evan Mobley being able to do that, I think that that's a huge thing, especially in a playoff environment. I love it, man. It's not something I think many people truly expected to happen as quickly as it did. And credit to Kenny Atkinson and company for being able to instill that confidence in Evan Mobley to pull up from the left, from the right, from above the break. It's coming from everywhere, and you love to see that. Darius Garland, not the most efficient night from him from 3-point range, just 2 of 8, 25%, but he did managed to deal out 9 assists to go along with his 21 points, and he was pretty efficient from everywhere else, as he was 6 of 14 overall. I can't be too upset about the production we got from everybody else here, just because I felt that as a team, as a collective unit, for the better part of this game, they had some really, really good basketball being played. And one from Darius Garland in particular, that pull up triple over Haywood Highsmith, that was big. That was money. I absolutely loved that shot. And I think that just kind of tells you what Darius Garland is capable of doing in big moments, because that was a pretty big swing for Cleveland at that point in time. And as long as you have guys that are capable of doing that, I'm not really worried about the chances of Miami coming back in this series. And I think with that being said, it's probably a perfect place to hop in the chat, as TM Clap says, say it with me, Cavs in 4. I'm right there with you, man. D Jackson says 2-0 start. It's over for real. We finna sweep them. I think we can, Mac. It's certainly possible. I entered this series. I'm going to keep it 100. I'm not going to lie to you. I entered this series feeling like, one, it would not only be competitive, and I think you saw that tonight, and you saw that at specific points in game 1 where Miami kind of went on their little runs. But I also felt as if Cleveland could end this one early. I didn't think it would be a sweep. I think Miami, entering this series, I thought Miami could legitimately steal one. And tonight felt like their chance, felt like their biggest opportunity, but it was for naught. As Cleveland kind of righted the ship, or should I say Donovan Mitchell righted the ship. But I legitimately thought that Donovan Mitchell, not Donovan Mitchell, I legitimately thought that Miami would be able to steal one. And at the very worst case scenario, too. But I'm starting to lean towards sweep because I think Cleveland has taken their best punches and come out the winner. They're 2-0. And frankly, after the fourth quarter in this one, they probably should have lost. But they couldn't. And I think that that's a spirit breaker. I think Miami saw some things tonight, especially after replacing Alec Burks with Davion Mitchell. I think that's something that that Spoelstra is probably going to keep leaning on, and some of the different looks and the ways that they were playing Cleveland tonight. They're going to keep using the zone. That was huge for them at specific points, but I just don't think they have enough to steal one anymore. I'm just at that point where I do think I'm starting to lean towards sweep. So I hope that's the case, because you end the series early, you get to watch everybody else continue your scouting for round two, and your guys are going to come out refreshed. Derpy Entertainment says, come on, Cavs, got to make it happen. I agree. HJ17 Gaming says, death taxes and Tony Brothers being a shit ref. I think that says everything. That sums it up. Philly Bandicoot says, they had me worried at the start of the fourth, but they came through again. Let's go, Cavs. The one thing that I've always said in regards to Miami is that you got to respect them. They're always going to put forth a valiant effort. Spo is always going to have these guys executing at a high level. And there's obviously a talent deficit between these two teams, but you always want to take your opponent seriously, especially in the playoffs. And I do believe that Cleveland, they locked back in, or at the very least, Donovan Mitchell locked back in. And sometimes that's all you need. D Jackson says, I don't know why they kept fouling with seconds left in the game. I mean, it was over. They wasn't going to come back by fouling. Honestly, you just never truly know what can happen. So I guess what's the harm? JD says, Herro got whatever he wanted. Wasn't particularly happy with that, but good dub. Honestly, I felt like they played Herro pretty well. I thought that sometimes, and I think we all know this, right? Good offense beats good defense. It was a case tonight where Herro he was able to get his shot to fall, but that does not mean, when you look at the 30 plus points that he had, what he finished with 33 tonight. You look at what he was able to do, and what the stat sheet won't tell you is how hard he actually had to work for those points. Not all of them, make no mistake, but I do believe the majority of those, they were legitimately contested shots. And I think that Cleveland did their best to try and contain him. And he's one of those guys, right? He was one of only 9 players this year to finish with 1,000 or more drives. He led the NBA in jumpers this year. He is very, very efficient when taking that shot off of a drive. And he's pretty damn capable as a drive and kick guy out there too, as a facilitator. And so Herro is legitimately, and this is just all-star here. This is his breakout season. He is one of those guys that's kind of get his, and you can live with that if everybody else is kind of sucking around him. And that's what happened. Bam was not Bam, wasn't the particular Bam offensively that he is capable of being. Andrew Wiggins was pretty damn shitty in regards to an offensive standpoint, as he would finish with just 10 points on 3 of 10 from the field. You didn't really get too much production off of your bench either. I'm outside of Haywood Highsmith, and I guess if you want to include Nikola Jovic in that, still a pretty big fan of Jovic, I'm not gonna lie, but Jovic was 1 of 8 from 3-point range, just 4 of 12 from the field overall, and you didn't really get too much else from some of the ancillary pieces. So I can live with it if Herro is going off, as long as the other pieces aren't truly going off. J47 says, I'm just hoping DG limping is no big deal and he's fine by next game. He's been awesome and we need him. I think he'll be okay, but I'm sure we'll get more coverage on that. Maybe there's something already out, but that while I'm recording live here, that you guys can tell me about. Freddie B says, this is why I'm glad they're playing Miami. They're going to push us. This was a great first round opponent for Cleveland when you really sit back and think about it. And I was one of those people saying, hey, I want to see this team play Orlando in the first round. And a lot of people are like, man, what the fuck are you talking about? Miami's too physical. They'll elbow Jared Allen, break a rib, hurt some of our guys. And while that may have been the case, Cleveland, it didn't matter who they played in the first round. I thought that they would have emerged victorious against any of their opponents. But Miami was that one team where they're like, and this is no slight to anybody, any of the other coaches, any of the other three coaches that the Cavaliers could have faced off against, but I legitimately felt that Spo, after 17 years at the helm, multiple championships and multiple playoff and finals runs, he and the Heat represented one of the toughest matchups because of the experience, the physicality, and just the whole idea of what the Heat culture means. They play collectively as a really, really good team in terms of execution, and they have a perfect style for the playoffs in terms of pace and tone. I think that they were a good first round opponent for Cleveland because it kind of gives them that ability to kind of lock into the playoff physicality, and I'm honestly not mad about it. I truly am not. I don't know what your name is. Umbrella says Don saved us. Yeah, I'll agree with that one. A lot of his shots came in that fourth, and a lot of them were a high degree of difficulty 3-point shots. You just love to see it. D Jackson says the Heat did fight back, but when they was down like 2 points, they just couldn't stop the Cavs offense. Yeah, they fought back, man. They fought back, and you got to give credit where credit is due. Short B3 says that was such an annoying game. It really was. I gotta admit, it was fun though. It was entertaining for the most part. It wasn't always pretty, especially in that fourth quarter. But I thought that it was, from an entertainment perspective, as an objective viewer. If you're not a fan of the Cavaliers or you're not a fan of the Heat, this is probably a fun game to watch. Jordan React says, imagine team having to double your sixth man with your best player on the floor at the same time. It just goes to show how good Ty Jerome and, to a latter extent, DeAndre Hunter have been for Cleveland. And that's a good place to be in, because that, from a depth standpoint, that is not some place that Cleveland found themselves at the prior 2 seasons of the Donovan Mitchell era. You could not always say that about this team. And now they're just in such a good place from a depth perspective that if a guy has an off night like Ty did, you can have others that can pick up the slack. And that wasn't always a way in which it wasn't always something that Cleveland could have said. That's all I know at the end of the day. Devious 100 says, one of the worst officiating I have ever seen in a playoff game. You'd have thought they was in Miami. As I continue to say, I'm not a huge fan of Tony Brothers. Never have been, probably never will be. He did give Cleveland some calls tonight, but I felt that they were too far. They were leaning too far in the Miami direction. Did not love it. Jordan React says, Evan getting to this level is going to take time. People were just impatient because the Don trade happened so fast and out of nowhere. But let's just say Evan now has arrived. This is what we wanted and obviously I think if you step back and take a look and just kind of think critically about that trade, that all makes sense. Everything that Jordan just said, right? From a developmental standpoint, the timeline moved up. I think we already knew that, but I'll just reiterate it. The timeline moved up. The developmental window was going to need to speed up as Cleveland kind of cashed in his chips with Donovan, with Colin Lowry, Ochai Agbaji and picks and whatnot. They made kind of an all-in push at that time to acquire Donovan, and that kind of expedited the developmental process for guys like Evan, guys like Darius, guys like Isaac Okoro and beyond. You needed all of them to speed up their development. And while it's worked to varying degrees for some and not so much for others, clearly Evan was capable of getting to the point where we are now currently seeing him play at. It just, one, took some time, and 2, it took the right voice, especially when you're talking about the shift between JB Bickerstaff and Kenny Atkinson. JB Bickerstaff, you guys know I've always kind of been a fan, always will continue to be a fan, huge supporter of what he's doing over in Detroit. Hopefully they send New York home. We'll see what happens with that series, but it's clear that JB was not really high on development in terms of Evan Mobley, and Kenny Atkinson is kind of the antithesis of that. He is a really good player development guy, and he has gotten the best out of many of these players, and I love him. Right? I love him for that. And to me, I think that the hiring of Kenny Atkinson has helped out Evan Mobley and Darius Garland probably the most. And I just love what we've seen from a developmental standpoint. Talking and Grubbin Media says, what's up, Mac? One blowout, one close game. All that matters, Cavs up 2-0. And that's the playoffs in a nutshell. Not all of them will be blowouts. These are very, very competitive teams in these, 16 team field that is the NBA playoffs. Nobody's just going to lay down and let you beat them. It's not going to happen, especially the Miami Heat with Eric Spoelstra at the helm. That's just not going to happen. Low-key Idealist says Hunter was also really big on defense, probably the best for my eye test. Strus struggled badly on defense, and this kind of the reverse, because in game one, Strus was really good defensively. Hunter not so much. Hunter was really good defensively today. Strus not so much today. But the one thing that both of them made sure to do was knock down the shots. Strus, huge in that second quarter run where he drilled 3 triples, some of the most beautiful shots that you'll see all game long too. And then Hunter, going 4 of 10 from the field and kind of giving you that all around game that Cleveland acquired him to do. So it was really nice to see that. Let's see here. Low-key Idea says, we just have to say it. Garland and Strus, defense in the fourth, is why we didn't win by 20. I think he's up there. I think Jared Allen kind of deserves a little bit of blame as well, but thankfully they were able to collectively close out. Cedric Taylor says, Sam Merrill's defense has been top-notch lately, needs even more minutes. I've been saying that for a long time. And the one thing, and look, I'm going to be transparent. The one thing that I've been saying about Sam Merrill all year long is that because I've been a big stat guy in regards to the defensive metrics in regards to him. When you look at like B-ball index and sites like that paint him really, really highly in terms of screen navigation and off-ball chaser defense, stuff like that, categories like that. I've been really high on using those metrics. The one thing that I've continually said about Sam Merrill in regards to playoffs is that I always felt like he would be the guy that would be first up to lose minutes come the playoffs. Well, I think we're kind of seeing that that's not necessarily the case, at least in this round one matchup. Now, that's the key. I don't want anybody to lose sight of that. Sam Merrill has been awesome, but you do have to kind of factor in the opponent too, right? The Miami Heat, they feature players that Sam Merrill can keep up with, stay in front of, in the likes of Tyler Herro, Davion Mitchell, and Andrew Wiggins. They can stay, or he rather can stay in front of guys like that. That could very much change in round 2 and beyond, depending upon who their opponents are. But for now, Sam has absolutely played his ass off. He's deserved every single minute that he's gotten out there. I don't want to ever go into a specific game, let alone matchup, saying this guy has to play this amount of minutes, yada, yada, yada. Because frankly, that is not how it works. Just not how it works. Anybody, any coach, anybody that played basketball at any level will tell you that, especially in the playoffs. You don't go in predetermined. It's just not what happens, or else you wouldn't see Dean Wade playing just 5 minutes and 37 seconds. You wouldn't see DeAndre Hunter playing only 23 minutes and 24 seconds. You just wouldn't see that. And Sam Merrill has been rewarding Kenny Atkinson's faith in him all season long with high-level play, and he's been a, very, very impactful two-way player out there, and not just impacting the game from a floor spacing standpoint. He has been impacting the game as a defender these first 2 games, and I hope that continues. I hope that trend continues into game 3 and beyond. So, yeah, for now, I think that Sam, he could, depending upon how the other reserves play, he could be deserving of even more minutes, but I think it will be heavily matchup driven. I just want people to keep that in mind. Razor 5313 says it's a must for the Cavs to sweep Miami in order for them to be rest and be fresh. I don't think it's a must. They can gentlemen sweep them, be just fine, especially considering how some of these other series are going. But it would be nice. I think that would be the most optimal thing. Christian Gigliatmo says, I look forward to the Eastern Conference Finals from Boston. This may very well be the best Eastern Conference Finals we've had in a very long time. It very well could be. And this is assuming, again, that both teams make it that far, because I never want to assume anything. This has been a special season from Cleveland. Just the second best record in franchise history, numerous records along the way, one of the most historic offenses in NBA history. And they just set another record tonight, as I mentioned. 11 triples in that second quarter, the most triples in any playoff quarter in franchise history. But at the end of the day, you still have this round to finish. You still got to finish round 2, and you really don't know what's going to happen. And the same can be said for Boston. As much to the chagrin of Boston fans, it's not a given that both of these teams make it that far, but I really and truly hope that they do. I think they have a really, really good shot at making it there, and I think that can make for a really compelling Eastern Conference Finals. D Jackson says, "Did you see Jarrett reject Bam?" I think it was Bam. He said he'd get that weak stuff out of here. I did, and I loved it. I did. I always love playing or seeing stuff like that. Christian also says, just please make sure y'all don't get upset by the Pacers. I don't think they will. Devious 100 says, you see Orlando cracked Porzingis' head open? I did not. I did not. I mean, I spent the day or the night rather watching Cleveland's game. I'll have to go back, and I typically do. I go back and watch some of the other playoff games that are on, and I think that Jimmy actually got hurt tonight against the Rockets, and I don't think he returned. Jordan Rack says, just to know, no Tatum hurt his wrist against Magic already, and Porzingis was bleeding from the head in the game today. So no thank you to the Magic, even though they can't shoot. See, this is what I was talking about. When I said that, when I said before that the Cavaliers found out who they were going to play during that play-in tournament, I was one of the people saying, give me Orlando. Just one for the storylines. Two, just to shut Orlando up because their fans, man, they be chirping. And three, I thought that would have been a good first round test. But after seeing some of the things that have now happened in back-to-back postseasons where, somebody's getting hurt, probably for the best that they didn't play them. Josh Sawyer says, am I crazy to think we're going to sweep the Heat? No, I think it's very, very possible. I did not. I'm being transparent. I did not enter this series feeling like they would, but it's a very real possibility at this point. They only need 2 more wins to complete the sweep. For the people says yes. Giles Strange says good game. The rest really put their stamp on this one. They always do, man. And you never want to complain about it, especially in a victory, but sometimes it's just more apparent than others. Darren says, why the fuck didn't Kenny take out DG and put Ty in? DG was clearly hobbled. I agree. Not much else to say. Josh Sawyer says, I think we can sweep the Heat. Provided number 1 says, smash that like button, folks. Folks, do what he says. Do your boy a favor. You never know how much you help out a brother when you do that. Freddie B says, I'm watching Tingus Pingus press conference. Yeah, he's got a gash on his forehead. I'll have to check that out. D Jackson says, did you see Lillard and Tyrese talking shit to each other? I did. I think that series with the return of Damian Lillard, that is always going to kind of, it has the potential to make the series last a little longer than it has. Now, after we've seen these first 2 games, frankly, I don't know how it's going to end. But what I can say is that you never want to count out Giannis and company. I think it would be foolish to do that, but time will tell. I'm just glad to be in the position that we're in. Up 2-0, took Miami's best punches, took some of their runs, and still managed to emerge victorious. And that's an accomplishment for this Cavaliers team that's still pretty young, still hasn't gotten the grasp at times of learning how to close games. Look, man, it took everything they had last year to beat Orlando in 7 games. And granted, the injuries there to Jared Allen, not having Dean Wade in the first round, etc. It wasn't always pretty in that series. They still managed to win, but it took them everything they had to win in 7 games. It just took a lot. This time around, this postseason, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think Cleveland, they can fall victim to being lulled to sleep at times, but they proved and have proven through these first 2 games that they can lock in when they need to, specifically from an individual standpoint. You've seen Ty Jerome kind of shut it down. You've seen Darius Garland have his moments. You've seen Donovan Mitchell tonight really, really going for the jugular and just destroying things to close it out. And that's a good place to be at. And I think that is probably the best place for me to end things at. As I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. Do your boy a favor. hit that like button. If you're watching over on YouTube or you're watching over on X, do boy a favor, head over to YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber to this Cavalier podcast, and hit that notification bell. If you want to support the pod in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member or supporter over on Patreon. As you see the patrons listed in that bottom right-hand corner: Dana Scott, Clayton Mortimus, Stephen M., Ryan Johnquist, Justin Sells, Jen Thomas, Sean Williamson. I hope that list continues to expand as this postseason continues. Go Cavs.